Last week I was on Instagram Live and something happened I'll remember for the rest of my life. This young kid named Luke joins the call and starts telling me about his challenges with football, that he had been pursuing athletics his entire childhood and it fell apart. And since that moment, he's let himself go in his relationships, in his personal relationship. And he gave me permission to share the story. And he told me that one night, 2 a.m, he had a plan to take his life. And he walked himself about an hour from his house to a cliff. And before making the decision, pulled out his phone and went online. And for the first time ever, randomly stumbled across one of our videos about emptying your backpack. Sat on the grass, watched everything for the next 2.5 hours, and then decided to walk home. And then joined on Instagram Live and told me this story.
Wow.
And then I think about, I'm starting to get a little emotional.
Welcome back, friends. Today I woke up early and risked so many lives on my way to Turtle Lake to sit with a Canadian. I passed opossums, I passed some raccoons, I almost hit 3 deer, but I made it. Our guest today is a youth keynote speaker who performs hundreds of times a year at schools around North America and even all the way to Kenya. He's also the author of Empty Your Backpack, another children's book that just came out. And a podcast host, although I don't know if you've done any podcasts recently, who has interviewed hundreds of incredible people himself. Welcome to the show, Sam Demma.
Dude, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Does anyone call you Salvatore?
No, and I've never had animals mentioned in the introduction of a podcast before.
Dude, well, I mean, I woke up at 3:45, so on the drive here, I was like hyper aware of all animals. I'm listening to podcasts of you, even though I already listened to like 5 over the last week, just listening to you tell stories while I'm like keeping my eyes out for the reflection of deer. So thankfully I made it. You just flew in last night, right?
I did. I got here pretty late. I had a show at Meridian Hall, which is one of the largest soft seat theaters in Canada. It was a beautiful experience for 3,000 high school students, parents, and educators. Finished the event midday yesterday, jetted home, packed my bags, got to the airport, flew in last night, drove here about an hour, and here we are.
Dude, and then you're heading right back to the airport after a presentation today, right?
I will fly to Virginia and work with a Toyota dealership for 2 days.
Oh my God. Okay, I guess we will get into that. But before that, in your own words, who are you and what are you passionate about?
I always tell people I'm a human being. I think that there's a complex we sometimes give people that are doing really cool things in the world, and it's like, no, they're no different than anybody else.
Yeah,
they just had a passion for a specific skill set or thing, and they pursued it for a long period of time. I happen to be half Italian, half Greek. I love food and everything that comes along with the culture. Big family. Grew up playing soccer. It was my first love and passion. Today I consider myself a writer, a speaker, a collector of stories. I see my job as collecting little experiences and sharing them with the world. And my goal is just to make people better.
So I'm really curious about that. I don't want you to take any of this the wrong way, but I'm curious about wording about some things that you said.
Sure.
When you say make people better, I guess I'm just interested as to why you use that wording specifically.
Yeah. We sat down as a team and tried to figure out what is the mission we're on.
Yeah.
And boiled it down to that simple statement. And I think for me, what it means is help people build better relationships with themselves. So the way they treat themselves.
Sure.
And as a result, hopefully, if they have a better relationship personally, they'll treat people around them better also. So when I say make people better, I'm talking in terms of their relationships with themselves and with others. It is subjective. I think that's what makes our mission a little flexible.
Totally. Well, and just the whole idea of like what's really better. You know, especially as I've gotten older, I feel like when I opened my store, I was 23, and opening a brick and mortar store at 23 was like a big deal, you know. Granted, like you were already traveling the world as an author and everything by 19, so it's all like by comparison. But I, you know, I had this thought of like I needed to be remembered and I needed to have this huge impact. I needed to do all these things, and it kind of like messed with my psyche over the years a bit, like being too attached to like I need to be great, I need to be exceptional. You know, and then as I got older, I viewed the world a little bit differently. And it's not like my mission changed as far as like wanting to help people and inspire people in that kind of way. But I saw a lot of other people and what sacrifices they had to make in order to be exceptional or in order to be great. And we have like we have a pie of time and energy to be able to give to things that it is finite, you know. And yes, you can maximize your time, but there still is a certain amount of time. And these people that we view as like great or exceptional in a lot of these fields, a lot of them are neglecting family. A lot of them are neglecting their personal health. A lot of them are neglecting their mental health. There's a reason they have all these other issues. And once I started to see it that way, I was like, oh, so they're not better than me. I'm not better than them. They're impactful in one way. I'm impactful playing a video game with my daughter last night, playing this like cooking game. You know, that has its own like impact in a way that matters. You know what I mean? So I was just curious as far as that, because when you say make people better, it's like, well, everybody intrinsically already has the same value. It's more, how can people find more fulfillment in, like, you know what I mean, feel better about their own lives and their own selves in whatever way that looks like. And when you're a youth speaker primarily, and when you're talking to youth, that's really important to be able to push the like motivation factor to them of like, you're capable of anything. But the flip side of that is, you don't necessarily have to be anything for anybody either. And the pace at which you do things is your own. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you reach this one peak by this age. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sorry, I went on a whole tangent about that.
No, I appreciate it. I feel like people associate improvements with career so often. Yeah. In our mission, it could be as simple as someone building a better relationship with their kids. Yeah. Or as simple as building a better relationship with their colleagues at work. Or building a better relationship with themselves and not neglecting a passion they had in their childhood. And at the age of 50, they decide to start a bike shop in their garage and selling bikes to people or fixing bicycles. Right. I think that's the way we think about it. If people see a video of ours and decide to make a shift in their life, we've achieved our vision. Yeah. If they start using people's names and being more intentional with the strangers they meet on the sidewalk, we've achieved our mission. But maybe the word needs revisiting, because I don't want people to get the wrong, idea. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. And again, I'm not trying to be negative. I was just listening to it. I'm like, I feel like this would be a good conversation to have, because I think a lot of these things, especially as we grow throughout our lives, we make a lot of blanket statements, which are like beliefs, like you talk about with your backpack. You kind of make these blanket statements of like, this is what it looks like to be able to reach this thing, and as you're navigating through life, you start to look at things a little bit differently, and you wouldn't until you have these various experiences, which we'll dive more into that. But I want to go a little earlier just with a couple fun questions. I know that you spent a lot of your life heavy into soccer. I don't think that fully disappears. What is your favorite soccer memory? It could be a game that you watched with your family. It could be a game that you played in. It could be watching one of your teammates score a hat trick. What's your favorite soccer memory?
By far, favorite soccer memory was sitting on the couch with my parents, aunts and uncles, cousins, watching Italy whoop Spain in penalty shootout. I was missing Uncle Sal's kid Jacob's birthday party to watch the rest of the penalty shootout. We were screaming, hollering, running around the family room like crazy people, shouting at the TV. It was probably one of the most joyful moments in my entire childhood, let alone soccer memories.
Dude, I'm going to go on a slight tangent here, but I'm so glad that you're able to tell a story like that and paint the picture, because a lot of these like motivational podcast books, they talk about maximizing your time, right? And like, how do you minimize all these distractions? And I've heard a lot of people be like, no screen time, which I totally understand how screen time does take away a lot from a lot of people. But I remember talking to somebody recently and they said something like, I don't watch sports anymore, as if it's fully a distraction. But that memory, how special is that?
That memory is so special.
Right. And so like these things do have their own value too. And that's why like as I've gotten older, I try not to make a ton of blanket statements in general, because I'm like, but there's so many nuances to all of this. Like I think about in 1996 when the Packers won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. I watched that with my dad. And that's a memory that I remember forever. When we won again in 2010, I was living in Minneapolis and I drove home to Eau Claire specifically to watch that Super Bowl again. And was that just watching something that didn't really matter? I mean, kind of, but it was also a bonding experience that like I'll take with me forever. You know what I mean?
The best athletes in the world had hobbies. What makes you think you can't have hobbies?
Yeah, exactly. Not everything has to be productive.
No, Kobe Bryant in his prime was writing kids books and movies.
Yeah.
People would look at that and be like, what are you doing? You could spend that time practicing more basketball. You could spend that time doing other things. He loved movies. He loved storytelling.
Yeah.
Why would you take that joy away from yourself? If there's something you love doing, if you spend time doing it, it's going to make you more productive in all the other areas in your life as well.
Yeah. Well, and you don't have to, again, reach any certain level. Yeah. Obviously, in a competitive sports, you want to win.
Yep.
But there's still a limit, right? Because you find these people that burn out way too fast.
Yeah.
Because they're putting everything in and they just don't have a good balance. Getting back to your career a bit. So you have a book, which I actually read, which I don't read very many books these days. I'm only 35, but you know this. You read a lot of books. Most people don't read a lot of books cover to cover, but I read it cover to cover via the internet, and it was a great book. It's called Empty Your Backpack, and I know you wrote it kind of intentionally for high school kids and stuff, and the whole premise is we all carry around this invisible backpack. You have like a massive one that you carry around, which people got to look that up. I'll throw it on the screen. But this invisible backpack that are filled with all these beliefs that you pick up from other people, good or bad. And the point is to like be able to reflect and go, okay, are these beliefs about myself and what I need to do with my life and all that, is this helpful to me or is this not? And to kind of look through it, empty it, and fill it with more fulfilling things. How do you write a book when you're 19? Because it's not like you had written several failed books. That was just your first book.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you. At least once a month, I get a message from a stranger on Facebook telling me that I'm too young to be doing what I'm doing.
Sure.
Like, I had a guy in his 60s blow up my phone, and I responded one or two times, and then he blew it up again, another 12 messages. And it was just like, your book was cool. I enjoyed the content. It would have been way better if it was written by somebody in their 30s who had life experience, and they just ripped me. Sure. And I dealt with those things for a long time, especially at the start of my career when I was 19.
Yeah.
I started to shift that belief when I saw the impact it was having on people. I'll give you an example. Last week I was on Instagram Live and something happened I'll remember for the rest of my life. This young kid named Luke joins the call and starts telling me about his challenges with football, that he had been pursuing athletics his entire childhood and it fell apart. And since that moment, he's let himself go in his relationships, in his personal relationship. And he gave me permission to share the story. And he told me that one night, 2 a.m, he had a plan to take his life. And he walked himself about an hour from his house to a cliff. And before making the decision, pulled out his phone and went online. And for the first time ever, randomly stumbled across one of our videos about emptying your backpack. Sat on the grass, watched everything for the next 2.5 hours, and then decided to walk home. And then joined on Instagram Live and told me this story.
Wow.
And then I think about, I'm starting to get a little emotional. I think it's selfish for me to be like, you're too young, when there's another person who just told me, you put out a video and it saved my life. I don't give a shit how old I am. I'm going to tell all the stories that I have to tell that I think are meaningful to other people and meaningful to myself. And I'm not speaking as an expert, I'm not an expert. The world does not need more experts. It needs more human beings that look out for each other. I don't care what your education is. Do you treat everybody the same way you treat your family? That's what the world needs more of right now. And I'm not speaking on behalf of any PhD or MBA or any of this bullshit. I'm just here to collect experiences I've had that were meaningful to me and share with the world in the hope that it helps somebody else. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Anybody could do that. Yeah. And I think it's stories like Luke and that little reminder that keeps me moving.
Dude, that's powerful. But I mean, that is the case with a lot of things. You look at like famous songs, not all of them are like, composed by somebody who knew everything what they were doing. You look at like a lot of famous artists. My favorite artist ever, his name's Luca Buffo. And I'd never painted until I was like 28 because I thought I had to be good at it or I had to take classes or something. And it wasn't until I was extremely depressed going through a divorce that I started painting because I didn't care about anything at that point. And I came across this artist that like, he just like painted these kind of colorful characters that like honestly wouldn't be that hard to replicate, So it's not like it was like good from that standpoint. But it was something I'd never seen before and it like struck something with me, and he's very successful. So it's not necessarily about like you have to do all of these steps before you can put out something creative. And a book is definitely still something creative. And yeah, so it's not necessarily about that. But I will say, when you're writing a book at 19, and I want to know more so too, just from the business side of it, how do you actually go about that? Do you just open up like a Microsoft Word on your computer and then you pitch it to people? I mean, thankfully nowadays you don't have to invest 50 grand into like having a bunch of books made, but like, how do you even do that when you're 19 without money?
The internet has made almost everything possible, in my opinion. When I wanted to learn how to write a book, I went on Google and searched how to write a book. Cool. And I found a book about writing books.
Sweet.
Bought it, read it, and it laid out a whole framework for writing a fictional book, writing a non-fictional book, the differences between self-publishing and publishing. The book was called The Scribe Method. And after I finished reading the book, I then made a consistent writing schedule, and I sat in Starbucks 2-3 times a week, and I would write for a couple hours. And there was days where nothing came out of my mind, and there was other days where the words just poured out of me. And a year and a half later, I had a really terrible manuscript. It was not great. I was not great in English. I then hired a team on a platform called Reedsy that's filled with book freelancers. So I had a book editor, a book designer, a book marketing person to help with the back cover and front cover descriptions. And together we finalized and fixed and edited and adjusted the entire product. And then at the end, you have a PDF file, and you can take that PDF file and upload it right to Amazon, and you have a book.
Wow.
So I self-published. I didn't want to wait for a publishing company to say, hey, Sam, we see value in you. Here's some money. We're going to help you create this product. At the start, when you don't have a large audience, and when I published that book, I didn't, there's no interest from major publishers unless you're the son of a famous person or have done some massive thing in the world. Yeah. And I knew I was going to take that book and drive around Canada in my grandma's minivan doing 87 presentations in 3 months as a part of the Empty Your Backpack speaking tour. So I figured, if I'm going to do all the hard work, why am I going to give away ownership of the book to a publishing house?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did, because like DIY teaches you how to do things, and that skill set is something you carry forward forever. I don't know that I'll ever publish with the publishing house. And I shouldn't say ever. Like you said, blanket statements. I might change my mind in the future.
Sure.
But I've seen the power of owning your book.
Yeah.
You know, last month we had a video go viral, and we sold, I think, like 3,000 or 4,000 copies of the book online.
Wow.
It's never happened before. It was first time.
Sure.
And I was like, wow, imagine a publishing house owned 95% of the book. That would have been very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I think what's funny though is like it's such a shift in business these days, because younger people grew up seeing all their idols and all these people online having their personal brands, who have their own, you know, water, you know, who have their own clothing, who have their own everything, right? And they see that like, oh, well, I can just do that, you know, and it's not even about being an influencer. It's just, you can build a personal brand around anything, you know, around your music. It can be around public speaking. It could be as an author. It could be around video gaming. I mean, it could be literally around anything. So now, and I know we're kind of jumping around a bit, but that's because you have told your story in other podcasts, and there's a ton of great ones. So people can definitely go check them out. / they can go check out your own podcast. You had 200 episodes or whatever of.
Yeah.
But you have a new book called Be Somebody's Taco, which is a kid's book, which I love that you made a book that was like for high school kids, which really applies to like, I mean, can definitely apply to adults, but I think just, you know, the teens into their 20s and stuff is the audience really for it mostly. But there's a new children's book, which is a totally different thing, because you can't delve into, you know, like you want to cover a concept, but you can't put bullet points in that kind of a book. How's that book going, as far as like how long did it take to write it? Did you have a bunch of collaborators? How did you find the illustrator for it? Like, kind of how's that going?
I'll start by saying that book was not strategic at all.
Sure.
And I don't think everything in our life should be.
No.
Like you said earlier, like I was sitting up in my cottage thinking about stories that I tell, and this idea popped in my head. Be Someone's Taco needs to be a kid's book. And it's based on this simple story of my friend who was struggling. I found out he loved tacos, Ubered him and his wife tacos. He calls me back, bawling his eyes out, and then creates a logo of a bright yellow smiling taco that says Be Someone's Taco. And the whole,
you made stickers of that.
I did.
Okay, cool.
And the whole idea is just, you know, remind people that if someone's in need, try and be what that person needs. If they need a shoulder to lean on, be a shoulder. If they need someone to help them pack their house and move, be a moving helper. If someone needs a study buddy, be their math tutor. And it's more geared towards kids. And so I had this idea, and I have not written a children's book. I knew I could do it on my own, but I came across this guy named Paul Fair, who helped a friend of mine create a really awesome nonfiction book. And when I was reading his bio, it said that he worked at Disneyland. He used to dress up as characters and surprise kids. And I thought, man, him and his wife Miranda would probably be the amazing partners for this project. And so I called him and pitched the idea. And he's like, look, man, we don't do children's books, but I'll talk about it with Miranda. Then we had the call. It blew his mind. And him and his wife were like, why don't we just partner? And I was like, I don't even know you, but yes, like, let's do it. And so we did a partnership on the book where I brought the story and the marketing, and they brought the design and the writing, and we collaborated and created that project together. And what was really cool about it is that they're parents of little kids, so they were testing the material with their kids and their friends' kids to see how it would land. And I think we came up with a really phenomenal product that we're all really proud of.
So is that actually out now or not?
It is, man. I got copies sitting in my bag over there.
Oh, sick.
Be Someone's Taco is available now, online, everywhere. I have not promoted it as much as Empty Your Backpack yet, because we had some issues with the fulfillment on Amazon and Ingram Spark. So we're solving that before we pour fire on it. But
Sure.
it's out there.
Well, and right now, like, so much of your brand is built around speaking at schools, but more so middle schools and high schools. So, like, I think with any product, I don't think it's a good idea to just hold something forever until something's perfect, because things will just never be perfect.
Yep.
But I do think it's important to, like, have a good strategy in place of, like, this is how I want to release something, because that initial spark matters quite a bit. I know that you, when you were younger, you're still pretty young, and I'm not trying to say that in a bad way or anything. Honestly, it's just a good way, because you've accomplished so much. It's pretty killer. But you invested in coaching, not just soccer coaching. You invested in career coaching. And I think that's something that's starting to become a bigger thing. But a lot of people who aren't from big cities, not that you're from one, struggle to find one, don't know how much that costs. People hear about the benefits of them, but it's also just a service most people don't ever really get to even try out. So how did you find a coach? What did it actually cost? What did that look like?
Coaching shortened the gap and learning curve exponentially for me in my business. I think what's really important if you think about a coach is, number one, you want to find someone who has the results you're looking for, whether that's physical fitness, relationships, their business life, or any other outcome you're hoping to achieve. The second thing you want to look for is someone that you are inspired by personally, meaning their character, their personality, the way they carry themselves, their integrity. Are they holding themselves in a way that inspires you? And then number three, you want to ensure that it's a person who has your best interest in their hearts. They're not just doing it to fill their pockets and bank. They're doing it because they genuinely care about your success and want to give back. I think if you can find a person that fits those three categories, and you have the ability to invest in some coaching from them, it's going to have a dramatic impact on your life.
How do you find somebody like that?
I found my mentor after I started the journey. I think most people start looking for one potentially prematurely. I had been speaking for about a year, and I was starting to face some challenges. And my first mentor was a gentleman named Cody, and he saw me at a speaking competition. And he walked up to me afterwards and said, dude, you did an awesome job. I know you didn't win, but if you have any questions about this work, I'd love to take you out for a lunch. And we sat at a burrito spot for an hour, and he answered a bunch of my questions, and that turned into a lifelong friendship, and now he's one of my best friends. But it started as a mentor/mentee relationship, no financial investment involved. That was pure mentorship. First official coach was a gentleman named Chris, and Chris I met after he emceed an event I was speaking at. And after I spoke, I walked off stage, and he handed me a piece of paper with his phone number on it. He's like, dude, I love what you do. If you have any questions, give me a call. I didn't call him for a full year. And then I did call him when things got really challenging, and he answered questions for like 3 hours. And I wanted more of his time right away. It's like, oh, this guy could help me. So I started asking him if he would coach me. And he's like, no, I don't coach people. Like, it's just not part of the way I do my business. And I was like, please, I'd really appreciate it. And I just persisted for a couple of weeks, and then finally took me out to lunch and talked about what it could look like. And we created this win-win scenario that worked for both of us. So I would say if you're looking for coaching, but you haven't already journeyed a little bit, at least a year on your own, trying to figure things out, it's a little premature. Start going into the forest, and you'll find the person at some point.
Well, for one thing, because if you haven't actually put in any work, no one's going to take you seriously.
No.
So why would they want to invest their time and energy into you anyways? Also, you won't know like what you're looking to ask. You know, I quote this guy too much. And it's so funny because it was just an Instagram story that he posted. But this rapper Cashanova from Minneapolis that I'm friends with, and he was a guest on the show forever ago. I think he was just like, but he's like driving, he's in his car, and he's like, I don't want to say it. I'll say it and then I'll edit out the words. Stop listening to all these motherfuckers telling you what to do when they haven't done what you're trying to do. And it was just really, that really stuck with me, because it's like, you could try to emulate all these people, but if you don't really know what you want to be, you don't know who to ask advice from. Because they're not, you know what I mean? If you're just like, I want to be a great public speaker, well, there's different public speakers and all like go about it in very different ways. And unless you start figuring out where your voice is even a little bit, you could be asking advice from somebody who's going to take you down a path you don't even want to be on. So it's totally a waste. But I love how you painted that picture too of like, it wasn't even necessarily a desperation of like Googling. It was just like, I found somebody that inspired me. And so then I wanted to know more.
And we bump into those people all the time.
Yeah.
It's just being intentional about saying, I want more time with this individual. I wonder if they're willing to sell me some of it or give me some of it. And certain people will say yes and give it to you for free. But I think the biggest difference between mentorship and coaching is that mentorship is informal and it's very sporadic. It's very random in terms of time and schedule. Coaching is every Tuesday for 2 hours. We're going to show up on a call and solve your problems and help you move forward. And it might not be on a weekly basis, but there's usually more schedule and structure around it.
Yeah.
Which makes it really helpful, especially if you're trying to grow something.
Yeah, and works for you being an ex-athlete. I'm sure you're still athletic, but
yeah,
just having structure of like, if I don't put in my practice, then I'm not going to hit, you know, having structure like that helps. You said that you were going through challenging times when that happened. What was it that you were being challenged by?
The pandemic just started, and I don't talk about it often, but I dropped out of university to pursue the path I'm on now. And it was one of the most challenging decisions, not only because I didn't know if I was making the right choice, but I felt like I was letting people down.
Yeah.
My parents, all my friends that were in school, my grandparents who moved to this country and, you know, had nothing and worked really hard to provide their kids with a better future. And, you know, I started building some serious momentum. And then a year after I dropped out of school, the world shut down and I had 34 presentations canceled. And this loop just kept playing in my head. Did you make the right choice? Maybe you should still be back in school. Like, what are you doing? And I had hired Chris in January, and March is when the pandemic hit. And if I didn't have him, I probably wouldn't be speaking today. Wow. Because he understood that every challenge was an opportunity if you chose to shift the way you were looking at it, even though it was extremely difficult for his business as well in that moment. But he essentially told me, Sam, when things get difficult, 99% of people give up. But the world needs what you have to offer now more than ever. If there's less people that are doing it and more people that need it, wouldn't you say it's your greatest opportunity? And that little question just shifted the way I was thinking about the challenge, which inspired me to go to Best Buy and buy some ring lights and cameras and set up a virtual space in my bedroom on top of 4 luggages. And I did over 100 virtual performances that year. It was a crazy shift. And if I didn't have him in my corner, I'm not sure I would have made it on my own.
Dude, I will say I don't do virtual interviews really, but if I had to do one, your virtual interviews look primo. Anytime I've watched them, I'm like, wow, dude, this could be in person. It's crispy, it's clear, it sounds fantastic. Yeah. You definitely set it up. But I think, so I interviewed this dude, Andrew Cannon. He was the brand manager for Santa Cruz Skateboards. I actually interviewed him in Santa Cruz at the building and everything, the distribution, which was so cool. And I remember asking him, and this was like season 2. So this was 5-6 years ago. And I asked him about the challenges of social media, because like what pro skateboarding looks like, you know, is different. And he flipped my mind on it too in that moment. He was like, you know, everyone complains about it as like it's just this big challenge. And he was like, but the thing is if things stayed the same, other people would know how to do it better than you. You'd have all these masters at this craft. He said, but when things change and now there's this huge challenge, instead of looking at it in that way, look at it as the opportunity of nobody is an expert yet. So
everyone's back at ground zero.
Exactly. So all of a sudden you have the ability to become the expert if you want to put the energy into it. And man, dude, that's one of those things that I'm sure you can agree with this from doing the podcast from your own. You just like learn so much from people. And it just like stuck with me to this day of like, oh, that just means there's more opportunities. When the pandemic happened, like my business never recovered because I was forced closed because I wasn't essential. And then people started shopping online more and more. And then all of a sudden, all the tariffs and everything else, it's just like my business never recovered. But because the pandemic shut everything down, I interviewed Lamorne Morris from that show New Girl at his house when the show had, 100 listeners on Spotify or whatever, and there was not even video. But it was just a matter of like his TV show, Woke Season 2, was put on pause. And so he was just hanging out at his house. And I knew some people who knew him, and he's like, whatever, I'll do it. And then that ended up being a trigger to get so many other people, and that like changed the momentum shift of like everything with the show.
Wow.
And it was because of the pandemic shutting down my business. So it really is like just depends on the opportunity. So public speaking, I think, is something a lot of people struggle with. I'm not going to say I'm good at it. I was on a mic at this music festival, and as much as I'm on a mic, dude, my hand was like shaking when I actually had to be in front of people. What are 3 things that you've learned that help you with public speaking that other people, if they tried to work on them or if they took these things into play, it would help them with public speaking?
Speak on your personal experiences. That's one of the first pieces of advice I give everyone who asks. Your stories are so rich with value because no one else has experienced them. No one else last week was sitting on a plane with a 74-year-old woman named Ruth who was flying to Corner Brook and just started dropping gems that I captured in my journal. Beautiful story, She actually, mid-conversation, looked at me and she said, Sam, the best piece of advice I've ever gotten was from my mom. Her name was Vera, and she said, Ruth, if you're not willing to accept the faults in other people, be prepared to have no friends. I was like, that's facts. Yeah. So yeah. I will tell those stories and that interaction on stage.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful experience that no one else has had. Speak on personal experiences. Secondly, the hardest part about public speaking is giving yourself permission to be yourself. To just literally get up there and be yourself. So get rid of any attempt to try and be inspirational, to try and be vulnerable, to try and be funny. Just be you. And if you are funny and inspiring and vulnerable, like those things will shine through naturally. How do you actually do that? I think it's repetition and reminding yourself it's okay to just be me up there. And then the third thing I would say is do some research, read books on how to improve. There's a book called Storyworthy. I would recommend everyone read. It's helped me tell better stories. There's a book called The TED Guide to Public Speaking. Phenomenal resource filled with public speaking ideas. I would say those 3 things are a good place to start.
Yeah, I think people can see through the bull pretty quick. And if you aren't telling specific stories, people know that you're just pulling these from random places and it's not true.
Yeah.
And like, I think if you are willing to just like be vulnerable and tell your stories, if nothing else, even if you suck at it and you stumble over your words, at least you're relatable then, and then people can go, oh, well, that guy could have been better, but I liked him. At least, he didn't come across as an egotistical prick or something. And I want to mention too, that there's a lot of things in the motivational space, which I guess I'm being combative with it a little bit today, but there's a lot of things in the motivational space that again are talking about being as productive with your time and saying that like some experience is more valuable than other experience and whatever. And I will say that I think throughout life, as you get older, when I was younger, I didn't see this. But as I've gotten older, regardless of how you spend your time, you're learning so much about different things, not necessarily better. Yeah. You spent time out in Kenya. Is that incredibly valuable? Absolutely. It opens up your mind to how other people live. It builds empathy, like shows you what empathy looks like. And you learn a lot from traveling. Don't get me wrong. But you learn a lot about yourself when you just go camping too. And so I used to think like, unless somebody had experience or lived this life that I looked up to or whatever, that I didn't have much to learn from that person. And that, I don't think that's true anymore. Now I think of it as, I wouldn't ask that person for a career advice if they haven't done what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But they have lived however many years of their life, and they've had countless experiences of all kinds of things that have built and do have a lot of value in their own way. Like, those experiences are still valuable, and then all of a sudden they become a life lesson that they can tell you on a plane, that you wouldn't think would be valuable to your career, but it is in its own way because it is still life wisdom. I got a few short questions for you, and then I do have some more in-depth ones. I'm going to ask you a few top 3 ones just because they're fun and they work for social media. You obviously read a lot of books. What are your favorite 3 motivational or self-help books that you've ever read? You got a whole library of them.
Oh, dude. There's so many different books I've read at different times for different reasons.
Yeah, even in Empty Your Backpack, you list more than 3 that people should read. So
I feel like choosing a book is like, okay, I'm going to give you 3. My top 3 books of all time right now.
Yeah.
Number 1, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It taught me how to deal with human beings, build deeper relationships, and get more joy and happiness out of everyday interactions. Number 2, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's a classic. Everyone mentions this book. It was one of the first books I read when I got more into reading, and I found it really inspirational and helpful. And number 3, Empty Your Backpack by Sam Demma. If I had to choose a third book, I would choose Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It's a book that drastically helped me change the way I think about my business and life.
Dude, I'm going to have you send me some more, and I'll send you a few of my favorite books as well.
Cool.
You didn't list any children's books. So what are your favorite 3 children's books now that you're a children's book author?
Oh, dude. Green Eggs and Ham.
Yeah. Dude, I just had a rap song come up on my Spotify that was like all Dr. Seuss, every line was related to a Dr. Seuss book. I'll have to send it to you. But Green Eggs and
Ham is definitely one of them. Dream was a children's book I got when I graduated elementary school, and it's sitting in my closet right now, signed by all my teachers, and it just promoted believing in yourself and dreaming big. I don't know why. I didn't read it much, but I still remember it.
Sure.
A third kids book. I have a friend named Jasmine Paul who writes about financial literacy for kids. The Wealthy Playground. She has a whole series of books around financial literacy for kids. I want to give her a quick plug. So I would say those 3.
Dude, that's incredible. You've gotten to see a lot of other motivational speakers, I'm sure, just from studying other people that you've watched online, but you've also done TED Talk stuff. So I'm sure you've witnessed many. What 3 public speakers have had the biggest impact on you that you've watched personally?
Oh, dude. Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in person, but he has all of his lectures on YouTube. He distills ideas down so simple that a 5-year-old can understand them. And its simplicity makes you laugh, but then it hits you deep.
Dude, he's the most quotable guy. Yeah, he crushes.
I love Jim Rohn. The second, Dr. Leonardo Buscaglia. He was also around in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, passed away now. Spoke about loving people more, and spreading more love and compassion. And his lectures inspire me a ton to be more authentic, because you can tell that he's just being himself on stage in all of his goofiness.
Yeah.
Thirdly, I want to say Michael Jr. He's half comedian, half speaker, and his stuff also really deeply inspires me.
Dude, I think it's powerful when people use their platform like for good intentionally.
Yeah.
And they don't have to make it a whole crusade. But I do love when people like comedians decide, hey, I want to like talk about this issue, and they still can make it funny. But they decide, hey, this is something that I want to be able to talk about.
Yeah.
You drop these literally all the time, little gems, which you've picked up from a lot of other people and through your own life experiences. What are 3 life hacks people should start doing right now?
3 life hacks. I share so many. I think number 1, and I'll share this one first because I do it every day, is use people's names. learn them and use them. It could be a stranger on the bus. It could be the person standing behind the reception counter at a restaurant or a hotel. It could be the person you get your coffee from at Tim Hortons or Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts if you're in the States listening to this. Learn and use people's names. You'll instantly notice how it makes people feel when they smile after you use it.
They just feel seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Secondly, write down your experiences in a journal. All of my stories and books were first journal entries and just pages and pages in my journal. You know, literally this past week, I was writing about an experience. You know, I try with the backpack analogy to remind young people and everybody, your circumstances in life your circumstances in life dictate where you start, but it's your actions and attitude that determine where you finish. And this thought popped in my head about one of my sister's friends, Irina, who loves playing the piano, and she posts videos playing the piano every single day, but she broke her wrist. And so instead of stopping her daily piano playing, she filmed a video playing the piano with her left hand and using her right elbow. And the video went crazy viral. I was like, there's a perfect example of someone shifting their attitude when bad stuff happens to continue doing what they love. And that started as a journal entry. And now I'm sharing it with you, and I'll probably share it on stage at some point as a cool little story.
Well, the thing is like, it's just something with psychology of like when you write something down, it like locks it in the bank.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you forget things, you know, like I was telling you about the drive this morning. I'm going to forget all about how these two raccoons couldn't figure out to go to one side or the other. So I'm just driving slowly as they're running down the road in front of me. And it was like, what a cool experience. It's like 5 a.m. and I'm driving to middle of nowhere to interview this Canadian, and I'm driving behind, like, it was a cool memory, but I'm going to forget about it because I'm not going to end up writing it down. You know what I mean? But I think that's powerful if people take the time to do it. It's just hard to like find time to do that. So you've gotten to speak on all kinds of stages. You just spoke yesterday to a huge audience. I want to know 2 things. 1, what's your most embarrassing moment on stage? And 2, what's the most memorable moment that you've had on stage?
If a performer doesn't tell you this, they're a liar.
Okay.
Most embarrassing moment is when I've farted on stage.
Oh, no.
And I try my best to make it one of those quiet ones, but sometimes it just squeaks out a little too loud, and because you're mic'd up, the whole room can hear it. And I've had moments where it's been audible enough that the crowd laughed, and then I would pause and say something like, "Don't act like you've never done it before." On stage, mic'd up. But I would say that was pretty embarrassing. I've had a woman choke during a show.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I mean, that wasn't embarrassing for me, but it was a weird moment.
Yeah.
And she was okay, thank God.
Yeah.
One of my first presentations, I felt like Eminem from 8 Mile. Like I froze completely on stage.
Oh, no.
Had to walk off the stage and grab my notes and read what I was trying to say and walk back up there and continue. Fortunately, the crowd is almost always rooting for you, so they started clapping and going crazy and got me excited to walk back out there. But that was really embarrassing. But it was perfectly timed because it was right at the start of my career, and it reminded me that it's not that bad. Like the worst thing that could possibly happen is what just happened on stage, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be fine.
What about the most memorable moment that you've had on stage?
Past book launch, Empty Your Backpack, Be Someone's Taco in May. I had my 3 living grandparents sitting front row, and I had an 8-minute segment of the speech dedicated to them. Wow. The book was inspired and dedicated to them as well because they taught me what it really meant to be someone's taco by the way they lived their lives and how they were always looking to serve others. And having them sit there bawling their eyes out and understand still blew my mind.
Dude, what's it going to take for you to get a taco tattooed now?
That's coming soon, man. I already got the backpack right here.
I feel like it's necessary. That's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I know we got to get going here pretty quick. So I'll ask you 2 more questions. 1, I think we learn things constantly throughout our lives. And the question that happens all the time is people ask, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned, right? Mm-hmm. And so people give a lot of the same answers. So instead, I like to ask, because as we go through people view us as like, oh, you don't make mistakes anymore, so you just know everything. And it's not true. I talk to people all the time where I find out, what do you mean you didn't know that? How did you not know that at this stage of your career, you know? What's the most recent thing that you've learned? And it could be something relatively obscure. It could be something super integral to your career.
Yeah.
Anything.
The most recent thing I've learned that shifted my perspective is that it's two different skill sets to build a business and build a life.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, people spend a lot of time building a business and then forget to build a life. And I don't want to be 50 years old, 60 years old with tons of money and cool experiences without a wife, kids, a family, and close friends. Spending time building a life is so important. And I'm starting to put things in place now because I've made a significant trade up until this point. And I probably will continue for the next 3 to 5 years, making a significant trade to optimize for growing the career and the business. And I love it. But I want to be very intentional about building a life alongside building my business.
Dude, yeah, and that was a topic I would have loved to have dove into with you much deeper. Maybe in the future we'll have another chance to. But again, with this like motivational space, you see so many people that just preach about productivity and you need to sacrifice these things to achieve success and you need to blah, 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 blah. And almost all of them are workaholics that sacrifice too much, in my opinion, from what my life and what I would want my life to look like. And I talk to successful people in all industries all the time. And the thing that I see by far the most is that people are workaholics. It's not that they lack motivation. It's that they don't know how to navigate their lives, their personal lives with other people and everything else, because they're dedicating so much to try to reach this peak that they're going to be alone on when they get there.
I am so blessed, bro. My friends inspire me so much. Diana Kander, mom, wife, badass entrepreneur. But she has boundaries. She books 32 events. I might be getting the number a little wrong.
Sure.
And then she'll turn down anything else that comes in that year. $40,000 gig in Bali. Turned it down. Sorry, I got to be at my daughter's birthday. Or I just told my family I won't be gone more than 32 events. Kyle Sheely, father, husband, crazy successful entrepreneur, multiple books, like just a killer. And he has boundaries. This is how many events I do in a year. I have 2 busy months. The other months, I'm at home with my family. And I'm fortunate that I have these examples. My coach, Chris, phenomenal human being, dad, like great husband, amazing kids. Big business has boundaries. And I think what I've realized is that if I don't create the boundaries, I will keep doing the work because I love and enjoy it. And so I think it's essential that we all put these little boundaries in place. Here's how much I will do. And when you fill the cup, the answer is no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything in life is a spectrum. That's like one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn is that's what, like I said, blanket statements, not a huge fan of because everything is a spectrum. And there are a lot of people that they're looking for some motivation, but there's also a lot of people that had an unhealthy like relationship with motivation.
Yeah.
And they need to figure out how to live life and have that balance and feel okay and enough with how much they're putting in because they aren't being lazy, but there are other things that they need to be doing. And that is something that with myself, I was like, I need to achieve this by this age. I need to achieve this and blah, blah, blah. And thankfully I've found a better balance with it anyways, as I've gotten to where I am now, where I'm like, I don't have to reach any specific goal in any specific time. Not that it's a bad idea to have goals and all that, but I don't have to do that to call myself a success or feel good about the journey that I'm on. Because when I set that goal, I didn't know all the opportunities that were going to come my way. When my girlfriend was able to take a week off work and was like, do you want to go do something? I was like, absolutely. Let's go camping in a national park, 2 national parks in Washington where I don't have self-service. Not great for my career necessarily. Awesome for my life. Last question, because again, I know that we got to get going and we could always do a part 2 next time you come to this part of the world. When you do something that you're passionate about for a living, you get to have really unique experiences that are very meaningful to you, rarely financially driven, but they are what make all the hard work worth it. Can you think of an experience like that for you?
I had a family in Windsor, sponsor my speech at their kid's school, and it was the grandfather that paid for it. And I was so touched by the experience. I donated or discounted a bunch of books for the school and did some extra things. And they housed me in their farmhouse, the family. And I had breakfast and coffee with the grandma and the grandfather that sponsored the speech. And I ended up sitting in their barn house with the grandmother for a good hour and a half, just chatting about life and business and mistakes I've made and people I've met. And it was one of the most meaningful conversations I had in my 20s. I still think about it. She still talks about it with her daughter, the mom, who was a part of the whole thing. And now every time I go to this little town right outside Windsor called Tupperville, they house me. They call me their cousin. I call them my extended family.
Wow. Dude, that's amazing. I think about like all the people I've gotten to meet through the show, people that I've looked up to or whatever. Like Greg Lutzka is by far the most successful, famous skateboarder from Wisconsin, and I connected with him just over Instagram. Last time I talked to him, dude called me and we talked for 45 minutes, and he told me he loved me 5 times at the end of the conversation. And I'm like, Greg, you've changed my life, man.
Dude, that's awesome.
Dude, okay, so give a shout out where people can follow you, find your journey. I know you're like literally everywhere, and how best they can support your mission moving forward.
I appreciate that. If you search Sam Demma on Google,
D-E-M-M-A.
D-E-M-M-A, you'll find it all there. I'm very active on all socials, primarily on Instagram. We put up 2 to 3 videos every single day. I would love to have your support online and sharing those resources and videos. If you want to grab a book, we got 2 of them, Empty Your Backpack and Be Someone's Taco. I'm writing a 3rd book right now, which I'm really excited about. I won't share much about it yet, but it's going to be awesome. At least I hope my grandma thinks that. But yeah, those are our 2 books, and Sam Demma anywhere.
Dude, thank you so much. Yeah, Instagram is Sam_Demma. You can send him a message. If you're feeling really frisky, you can send him a voice message, because the first message I got from you was a voice memo, and those do stand out. So yeah, I appreciate that. One quick gift for you from Skull Candy. These headphones that you were admiring are for you to take with you. I would give you a coffee cup if you want one. I have a couple of them, but I know you're like flying everywhere, and those might not be a great thing to have to carry. But those ones are easy to go with.
Appreciate you, man.
So shout out to Skull Candy. You can find the show Passion Pod literally everywhere. YouTube's the big space that I've been working on for quite some time. But yeah, if you Google it, you can find it everywhere. There's merchandise and stuff online if you feel so inclined. Thank you so much for having me. Let's try to get this wrapped up so you can get going to your next engagement.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.